Hello, this is Chris for Bucketlist Music Reviews, and right now I am joined by Jason Cone McCaslin, the bassist of Sum 41. I don't think I would have ever imagined that I'd be interviewing Sum 41 someday. It's quite the honor.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, and Jason, I haven't heard that. Only my parents call me that. I always feel like I'm in trouble when someone calls me Jason.
Really, so everybody else just calls you Cone.
Yeah, well, I guess my wife. My wife's always like, she hates that name, so she's like, I refuse to call you Cone. So I'm gay to her.
Can I ask how you got that name?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a stupid high school nickname that's just kind of stuck. Like we all met in high school, like Derek, Dave, and our old drummer Steve, all went to the same high school in Ajax, and met in grade 9. And I guess every day I used to just come down to the cafeteria where everyone was eating, and I'd always just, instead of eating lunch, I'd just like go buy ice cream cones. And then eventually Derek, I think it was Derek, they just started calling me Cone, and then that was when I was like 14 years old, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, funny nickname, and now I'm almost 40, and everyone's still calling me it, so it's like, has not gone away.
Yeah. But that I love that. Like I find like there's so many like funny and weird nicknames in punk rock that is just kind of accepted like at this point.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of bass players always have nicknames like Flea and Sting, and I don't even know if they're nicknames or they just started calling themselves that or what. But yeah, it just seems like that.
Okay, so let's talk about Sum 41. I'm very curious. How has Sum 41 changed since Brown Sound came back into the band?
Well, we had taken a couple of years off because Derek had his medical issues, and then we were starting to do heavy music again, like on Scream Bloody Murder before he was in the band, and obviously when he was in the band, we had Chuck and Does Look Infected that were kind of on the heavier side. I think it was just kind of when we do records and when we go in and start writing music and stuff like that, we never really talk about a direction. Mm-hmm. It's more just like what comes out or what's inspired us from the last album cycle and we just move forward with that. So, with Dave coming back, it was more about a familiar face, a really amazing guitar player rejoining the band. And now we are able to have 3 guitar players, doing a ton of awesome guitar stuff. And Tom is obviously an amazing guitar player as well. So now we have like basically 2 lead guitar players. Kind of like Iron Maiden, and and Derek plays a lot of rhythms. Sometimes he can just sing now without playing guitar. So it's just given us a lot of like versatility, and we can just do a lot more. Where and Tom also plays piano and keyboards, so we can have 2 guitar players still with Tom playing keys if we want. So there's just a lot more we can do since Dave has come back.
So I was going to ask this later on, but I think it'll be a good segue. So, your next album, Order and Decline, is coming out in a few weeks, and it's being said that it's your most aggressive record. And from what I've heard so far, it sounds a lot like that. Was that like the direction you wanted to go, or was that like a complete accident when you were writing?
I think it was just kind of, like I said, like we don't really talk about it with each other. It's just kind of, when we were touring on the last album, 13 Voices, and we hadn't toured for a couple of years, we just started, 13 Voices had some heavy stuff on it, and we ended up touring for like 3 years, and just playing all over the world. I think it was just kind of what we saw people, gravitating towards or something like that. It's just really inspired by the last album touring cycle. Not even so much the last album, but just more like our live shows and like how, what songs we were playing and what songs we saw the crowd really going off to and really liking. And then, so, it kind of went from there and then heavy stuff just emerged and then here we are. And I think it is like kind of the most aggressive and heavy album, but it wasn't by design. It was just kind of how it turned out.
Uh-huh.
Like we didn't say like, oh, we have to make our heaviest album right now. It just turned out that way somehow.
And you just put out a music video for 45, open brackets, A Matter of Time, close brackets. I really like the music video. It really makes me think of that Black Mirror episode. I don't know if you saw it, where the cartoon bear runs for office.
It's so funny. I actually haven't, but people were telling me that when we released it, and all these Black Mirror references came up. And I guess there's a guy named Waldo or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, something like
Is there
that.
a Okay, yeah, and I mean I've never seen it, so and I've been meaning actually to go watch that episode just to see the reference.
Uh-huh.
But you know when we got pitched the video idea from the director, he didn't reference that either at all, and so I don't know even if he's seen it, but maybe it's just crazy coincidence, or maybe he has seen it. I don't really know, but yeah, I have to go check it out.
And did the director come up with the concept of Cosmo, or was it like the band as well?
Yeah, he had this idea to have like a character, a cartoon character, animated, and he came up with the name Cosmo. And then, you know, once the idea comes and we all kind of like it, then ideas start getting thrown around. But it was largely like his initial idea that turned out to be the video.
Hmm.
He's a British guy. He lives in London.
Okay, okay. Uh, so I was going to ask this before, but what has the transition been like going from Island Records to Hopeless Records?
Uh, Big actually, because you know when we first signed to Island Def Jam in 1999, we signed there because the team was so amazing. Like you know everyone that was working our albums up until Chuck, the end of Chuck, were you know everyone who we signed the label to were there, and they knew the band and they understood the band, and they gave us all the freedom that we wanted because we were already doing self promotion and marketing on our own as teenagers. That was working. Was basically one of the reasons they wanted to sign us in the first place. So they gave us all this freedom. And then about like Underclass Hero to Scream Bloody Murder, like the team started changing. Everyone started leaving the different labels. This is when, you know, obviously record companies were making their, you know, cuts because, you know, albums weren't selling. So people were getting laid off and fired. And so all of a sudden we were sitting there at Island Def Jam with like basically no one around anymore that we signed to. And then it just started getting a little weird. And so by the end of it, I think both sides were kind of unhappy. I think the Island wanted us to go in a certain direction. We didn't want to go in a certain direction. And we ended after Scream Bloody Murder. And now when we signed to Hopeless, it feels like those old days again. Like the team, you know, there was lots of labels we were looking at to be on. For 13 Voices and this album, and it just seemed like the team at Hopeless understood our band, and they had the same agenda and gave us the same flexibility and creative power that we've always had back in the old days of Island. So it feels kind of like that again, which is amazing.
I just gonna give you kind of a throwback memory right now. I remember when All Killer No Filler came out, and I remember like the kids in my class were like listening to it, and for the time being, it was like the heaviest thing they've ever listened to, and that really opened up like the door to metal music for them. So I was wondering, like, I guess what kind of like metal were you like listening to around that time, and have you like been listening to the same bands, or are you listening to like new kind of metal right now?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've always kind of listened to. I remember when I was, oh God, I'm maybe 10 or 11 years old. My one of my best friends lived next door, and he's 2 years older, and he showed me Justice for All for the first time on the Ghetto Blaster, and the speakers were rumbling because it's that record's so like bassy in the guitar, and I just fell in love with that album. That was like the first, I guess, metal record I ever heard was Justice for All, and then then I became a Metallica fan from then on, and then through the late '90s, early 2000s, Steve and Derek discovered Iron Maiden and stuff like that through skateboarding videos, believe it or not, like watching skateboarding videos and hearing Pennywise and like Bad Religion, but also Iron Maiden was thrown in there. So everyone started listening to a lot of Iron Maiden and Judas Priest around that time. And for me, it hasn't really changed. Like Metallica, Priest, and Maiden are probably my top three metal bands still. Other people in the band, Derek, I know, loves Black Sabbath, and Dave is like in a whole different planet with metal. Like he grew up with metal. He's the metal guy. Like he knows obscure metal bands, and death metal was always his thing in high school. We used to call him Death Metal Dave. And So he if you want to, like, he's the guy to talk metal with. Like, I like my core metal bands, and he's kind of like, we play festivals now. It's weird with our band. We play these metal festivals now in Europe, and like punk festivals and rock festivals. But he really lights up when we play these metal festivals, and he basically knows everyone on the bill.
Wow. Did you ever get a chance to play with Iron Maiden or Judas Priest at a festival?
Yeah, we a couple times. We did this Soundwave festival in Australia, and Iron Maiden was the headliner, and it was a kind of a traveling 5-day festival. And they had they're flying in their plane with the Iron Maiden logo on the side. It was amazing.
That's
And
awesome.
Priest, we actually just played with in Japan, Download Japan in March. But we also did in 2001, we did a song with Rob Halford for an
Oh, no
MTV
way.
performance. Yeah, so
That's
that was
great.
kind of like the first time we ever met him. And we've crossed paths. We even saw Judas Priest like years and years ago when it was like Ripper Owens, like when Rob Halford was out of the band. So we went to Priest.
So, I know that Derek had his troubles with alcohol for quite some time, but now he's sober. But did you ever struggle with alcohol at all?
Um, I don't know if it. I don't think. I mean, I'd say like I don't know if I ever had a problem, but I probably, if someone as an outsider came in around the same time Derek was getting into it heavy, he would say the whole band had a problem. I think we were all partying pretty hard between like 2000. I mean, in our early years, even like All Killer, Half Hour Power, and Just Like Affected, like we were partying like crazy. But we were in our early 20s. The early like 2010 to 2012, 2013, we were pretty back into drinking very heavy. I guess I don't know what it is, but I guess Derek just took it an extra step, and it caused his body to shut down. But yeah, I mean, if someone came in and hung out with us for a week, he would have said the whole band has a drinking problem. I mean, we've all kind of slowed down now. Like, I'll drink some red wine after the show, maybe have like a couple glasses of wine before I go on. And I'll go, I obviously still go out with some friends in Toronto and have nights and stuff like that. But I definitely have calmed down. That whole Derek thing was, I think, an eye opener for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of all have to look at ourselves and be like, okay, well, we all kind of are doing this, and we should slow down.
Mm-hmm. But it really seems like the band is in a good place right now.
Yeah, and we can all, the fact that a bunch of us still do drink, and Derek can still be around it. He's not trying to hide and can't be around alcohol. He just doesn't want to ever do it again, which is good. And so I think the band's in a great place that way. And being, we're almost, like I said, we're almost like over 40, like we're almost 40 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we could continue on the way we were continuing when we were in our 20s and 30s, the way we were doing it. Like, it feels good to be able to wake up and not be hungover every single day and try and get through a show.
So yeah, you have the album coming out. You're on tour right now. What else is in the works?
Basically, the record comes out on July 19th, and we're on this Disrupt Festival till the 28th, and then we're working on something for the fall in the U.S., and we're basically going to be filling up 2020 with a worldwide tour. The record's coming out, so we normally do about a good year and a half, 2 years of touring after a record comes out, so there'll be a ton of touring, and
Awesome.
that's about it.
Yeah. One last question. I always have to ask this. What is on your bucket list?
Well, my bucket list, for the band, there's places we haven't toured yet. Like, I always talk to my agent about Iceland. We've yet to tour in Iceland. I'd love to go to Iceland and play. And also, like, being in Japan so many times, we probably toured in Japan probably 25 times in our career. There's this like prestigious venue called the Budokan, where Bob Dylan has a record called Live at the Budokan and all that stuff.
Okay.
That's on a bucket list to try and play one day, but it's 15,000 people. So it's a feat, but we'll try and get there.
Yeah, I believe you can. Thank you so much for speaking to me, Cone.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right, have a good day. Peace.
All right. Thanks. You too. See ya.